Isekai, the weeb's genre. You can look in pretty much any direction and spot about like 100 subpar or mid isekai, and in that whole entire debacle, find about 1 to 2 golden series. The market is oversaturated with isekai, and people have been saying this for so long that you think the anime industry would have changed their minds by now. But no. It's still running supreme in the anime world. And today, I wanted to talk about an isekai, because when I'm not binging or rereading my favorite manga of all time, Kagurabachi, love you, Chihiro, you're the GOAT. Don't let anyone lay a finger on her head. I might be reading or watching other series. I know, a little bit blasphemous, but don't blame me. And while looking at these other series, I remember that I had a season 2 that I needed to jump onto. And when watching the series, I just remember just saying, I feel like this is a completely different story than the one that I read. But no, it is the same series, no matter how much they did end up changing it. And this series is The Eminence in Shadow. And to my surprise, the one that I thought was more faithful to the original really wasn't. So let's talk about it. Hi y'all, I'm Bayfond. And in my personal opinion, I think that the Eminence in Shadow manga is one of the best examples of parody in isekai. Like, to be real with y'all, I put it quite a bit up there. Not quite Konosuba level, but you know, general ballpark, because it's absolutely hilarious, especially the early chapters. Reading that stuff made me hysterical every single time. I absolutely adore Kid Sid, that is just a complete psychopath. Wow. How it's like to be young. So when I got the news that they were gonna make an anime adaptation, I was excited. I was like, they're gonna carry over this comedy 1-to-1 perfectly, and it's gonna be one of my favorite anime of the season, right? And to my surprise, I got something that was a lot more serious than I anticipated. It made me actually think, wow, I'm actually supposed to care about these characters and not just laugh at them. Was I just missing something from the manga that I just couldn't comprehend, or is this just what it's supposed to be like? Well, it's more like that one, actually. Because this series doesn't just have a manga and an anime. It actually has 4 different adaptations. There's the original web novel, then there's the light novel, then you can get to the manga, and finally the anime. And if you wanted to get a little bit more nitty-gritty with it, there's also the mobile game, which is getting its own spin-off, and so on and so forth. But hey, who's counting? But yes, those original 4 series are all somewhat different than one another. They've all got their own secret sauce that makes them their own special thing. And when we're talking about it, we can kind of see where fans' interpretation of everything really is. The web novel is the original. It's the author's original baby. That's what they cherish. But the light novel is more so the more refined, finished product. Any loose ends, any connections that were missed, they're brought into the light novel to try and fill in the gaps. If there was an ultimate edition of a video game, that's what the light novel usually is. And in this case, for The Eminence in Shadow, the manga went in a completely different direction because it took a straight beeline over to comedy, and it hasn't relented ever since. That's its main forte. If you're looking for story here, you're gonna get it, but it's gonna be under piles and piles and piles of jokes. My experience reading the manga, I just completely immersed myself in Sid's perspective, and I saw the world how he did. It's crazy, it's a mess, it's funny, it's hysterical how everything just goes his way. And because of the perspective of the manga, I thought there really wasn't much to this world in terms of lore, which is where we go back into the anime, and I'm reminded that I was so wrong. All 4 of these versions, again, are different. A fan that's read all 4 of them can go, oh, well, Sid actually never wore a mask in the light novel, but he did in the web novel, and so on and so forth. You can regurgitate any argument or any discussion, but nothing is gonna tell you what is the objective best adaptation, because it doesn't really exist. It's all subjective and all up to your taste. When I look online for things about the web novel, it seems like it gets a lot of hate because people say that Sid is a lot more like an asshole in that story than he is in any of the other ones. And the anime is a much closer tie to the light novel than it is the manga. The manga is kind of sort of a speedrun of the entire world, the lore, everything about this series. He wants to get you to point A to point B with jokes. He wants to do absolutely everything in the same manner, but just unserious. So it came to my surprise when I jump into the anime, and again, I see a more serious story that takes its time. These characters have lives that they're living. We're going back and looking at their histories. We're going back and learning so much more about the world than I thought I knew. And I learned that this isn't just a gag world, but it's got so much lore that it's actually interesting. And I actually start to care about these characters more than I originally thought I would. It's a weird development expecting one thing and then getting something completely different in return. In the manga, there are a ton of scenes that are just hilarious, but nothing that really made me go, oh my god, that was one of the most badass things I've seen in anime all year. Like I had when I saw Sid for the first time say, he is atomic.
I am atomic.
I would say that something that leads to some of the biggest differences in this series is actually going to be the artistic direction of how things are brought in. The entire arc where Aurora is summoned and we go through these prisons, which are in the anime like Abstergo-esque. Over here in the manga, they look like normal dungeons that you'd find on any isekai. It's a pretty much brick and mortar built prison. All this high-tech stuff didn't make any sense to me, and I felt like I was watching a completely different series because in no way did I remember any of this. And in regards to the story, in season 2, it feels like we're focusing much more on that aspect of all of the girls in Shadow Garden being possessed, or well, that there was a bigger influence there. But then again, maybe one of the big takeaways you got from this scene was that Aurora was best girl, because we already knew that from the manga, but seeing her in that nurse outfit, the anime just makes it hit different. And then there's the subplot with Claire, because this is something that, yes, it was introduced at the same time in both the anime and the manga, but it really wasn't talked about until like just recently in the manga, like maybe a few issues ago or some sort like that, which made me just kind of completely forget about it until I watched the anime. I guess I was just in a completely different headspace where it just didn't go through all the way. The anime takes the time to tell you these things carefully because it cares about world building. And I'm amazed that my opinion of the series has changed so much because of that. Now, would I say that one is better than the other? Maybe, and that's just because I'm biased towards the manga. I read that one first and I fell in love with that one first. So that one holds a nice place in my heart as being something that just made me laugh so hard when I first discovered it. The anime is good, and I can say that it tries better than like 90% of other isekai out there because again, it has this level of uncaringness to it, this funniness to it that the other series try to force, but this one does so naturally. Of course, the jokes don't just flow the same as in the manga. I mean, there's some episodes where I think, oh, they cut off one of my favorite gags in this entire sequence here just to see that next episode, that's when they actually brought it in. So the flow, the pace, and stuff like that, it's different. It's gonna hit you in a different way. But they try to capitalize on everything as much as they can. And another funny thing about these adaptations is that the anime is actually also trying to bring in things from the web novel that the light novel hasn't even brought over yet. It's funny. Yeah, if you read or watch just one of these adaptations, you're gonna get a completely different experience than someone that read the other thing. And the strangest thing is that at the end of the day, you guys can both say that you like the same thing and you can talk about it in enough closeness that it makes sense. It's wild, but anime does this all of the time. The Eminence and Shadow came to mind because that's what's airing right now and that's what I've been watching. But anime, again, does this so often that pretty much every version is its own completely different story. The Bakemonogatari anime and the Bakemonogatari manga, completely different adaptations. They have different tones, they have different art, but they deliver the same story. And I can tell you it's a completely different experience than reading the light novels, which I have back here. In terms of other isekais, Konosuba is completely different if you look at the anime than when you look at the light novel. Very different stories altogether. And Mushoku Tensei, another big isekai that I also enjoy, admittedly, has an anime and a light novel that people just love to praise, but it has a manga that people just absolutely despise. All because the things that are included or omitted maybe aren't the best parts of the story. And you can go down list upon list about differences that all of these different series and stories have. But how I see it is that it's kind of like an excuse to go back and rewatch and reread that story that you just wanted to know more about. It gives you an appreciation about the versions that you've watched, the differences, and what the creative teams decided to do that and what they thought was gonna be a better fit for the story. Sid in Shadow Garden might be battling vampires in every single adaptation, saying and copying cringy lines that just prophesize this world's future, but there's always something about it that's gonna feel a little bit different, and that's for you to see. And with that, I think that wraps up today's talk. Did you get as much whiplash as I did when you watched Shadow Garden? If you did, or if you didn't, let me know down in the comments below. I want to know that I'm not the only person. Aside from that, I think I'll make more videos once I catch up on these currently airing series. So with that, as always, I was Bayfond, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.